Okay, everybody, so this is my shop. Sorry that it's in such a sad condition where there's junk everywhere and I don't have as much space as I'd like, but I'm sure there's worse out there, so I don't feel too terrible. But definitely I want to have a nicer workspace, especially since I've been working a lot recently, and this is actually cleaned out somewhat. So as you can see, I've been just kind of using the table saw on the wheelbase thing over here that it came with on the floor. I'm using the thickness planer on the floor. Because it's so heavy, I have it on a little bit of a dolly so I can move it around. I just got a temporary table to put the miter saw. Just recently picked this up because I needed some sort of bandsaw to make some rip cuts and thinner pieces, and debated if I wanted to splurge and get something expensive or get something small to start out with and hopefully upgrade in the future. And I decided that I was just gonna start off smaller rather than spending a lot of money and getting something very expensive. Just some lights for at nighttime so that I can work, because the light here in the garage isn't as bright, so I'll turn that on in the evening time. This is a jointer that I got. Don't know really how old it is, but somebody was generous enough to give it to me, and I was able to plug it in and just use it a little bit. Still learning how to use it properly, I guess, and making adjustments. But yeah, it's a cool machine. Love the way it looks. Yeah, so I just have the sled for the table saw here that I use. Got some old wood that I'm going to start using up for the next project, which was ripped out from my parents' church. And some projects that I'm working on, cutting boards. It's a little bit of a sad state, but I have this bin over here where I put all of the cut off pieces, and I actually kind of use it like a table where I put just cut up pieces over here on the side. Obviously, bikes in the way. I gotta eventually move those to the other side to make more space. A little heater for the garage to work when it's a little cold. More pieces of wood over here to make the next project. I have an old Ryobi table saw here that I bought for myself during the holidays many years ago, and I never really used it. So instead, I just threw up a piece of plywood and taped it up with some Tyvek tape so that glue doesn't stick to it, and I just kind of made myself a makeshift table so that I can use. Drill press on the floor. Sometimes I move this around when I need a little bit more space. And then my, I guess, wall of shame over here, or depending on how you look at it, I guess a glorified wall, I guess, with some walnut, cherry, maple, some purple heart and stuff. But you know, I have this corner back here where I have a lot of wood. I've been basically just hoarding pallets and plywood and just offcuts. So basically I need to organize myself again and build a work table of some sort, workbench where I can mount tools up to the side. I have a lot of dead space over here and down below, where I feel like if I make a table from this corner here all the way to this side over here, and maybe a little space in between so I could put the compound miter saw, and then I could put a track saw, I'm sorry, not a track saw, but a T-track on the table that I can use for stop blocks and etc. and other accessories. I feel like that would work better in being able to put this up there. I'll have storage under the table to be able to maybe even push this planer in and eventually work on a table for that next time. I could also mount this up to the table all the way up in that corner. And then eventually I want to make a secondary table that comes out in a 90-degree angle this way. And I'm going to make it so that I can make it as an outfeed table for this table saw. Because right now, the table saw, the job site saw is limited. Most people will have trouble cutting long pieces on a job site saw because you have no support in the back. The one thing that is my saving grace is I bought this accessory. I don't even know where I got it from, on Amazon or something like that. It's basically an extender that I can extend and get a little bit more space for longer cuts. And then I also have it for the side here as well. But I think I need a bigger outfeed table. So I think I'm going to make that second table that comes across, like I said, over here, perpendicular to that wall, so that I can use as a outfeed table. And maybe I'll make that table on casters, so that way I can roll it around, because pushing towards the wall, I'm not going to have enough space. And if I turn the table around this way to face outside the garage, I'm obviously going to need the table on the opposite side over here, where the table saw is, so I can push material out that way. So, with that being said, the next step is going to be to start working on the table. I'm going to break this up into a couple of series, I guess, a couple of videos. The first one is going to be just an explanation of what I'm doing, plus being able to rip down the material that I have to get it prepped and ready for making the table. So here we go. Okay, so here we have the pieces cut to rough length. We've got basically eight pieces over here that I'm going to glue 2 at a time to make the 4 legs. We have 4 pieces that are running about a little over 48 inches, because I'm going to make the table about 48 inches. We have basically 6 pieces over here, which are going to be for the side of the tables, for both top, bottom, and then 2 I'm going to use in the middle of the table for support. The only thing that we need outside of this is maybe leveling feet, which I have on order, and the other thing we need is plywood. And since we're making a 2x4, basically we just need a quarter sheet of plywood. And then if you wanted to double up, which I'm going to do, I'll basically use half a sheet of plywood. So I'll go ahead and work on this table for now and work on the other one off camera. However, if you want to make a longer table, basically just take these runners right over here, or these pieces of wood, and instead of 48 inches, you might want to make them 6 feet or 8 feet. It's up to you, depending on how big you want to make your table. So the next step now is to take these legs and then glue them up. I'm actually going to keep the pieces of wood over here that run across the front and the back, as well as back to front. I'm just going to keep them at one piece of wood each. But for the legs, I want them a little bit more sturdy. So I'm going to glue up 2 pieces at a time. And then eventually we're going to cut out a little notch after we glue it up to take these, I guess, runner styles, whatever you call them, to sit on top of the wood for support. Okay, so let's go glue these pieces up. While you wait and watch as the glue is being applied and dry, if you enjoy the content that you're watching so far, I'd appreciate it if you go down and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to watch any more content in the future. So I got the pieces out of the clamps, and unfortunately I don't know when I'm going to learn my lesson. With the cold weather, the glue isn't drying perfectly, and I'm starting to get little seams or gaps in the wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually drill a pilot hole and then screw into the wood, and then I can cover up the screw hole later. I'm thinking about painting the whole thing anyway, so I'll just fill it in and then sand it and then paint it. But for the time being, what I need to do is, now that I got the leg out of the clamp, even though it's not completely cured and glued perfectly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one end nice and square on the miter saw. And then I have another leg that I've already done off camera that I have laid out where I'm going to put the screws. I'm going to put 4 screws in each leg. And then I have sections where I'm going to cut out pieces where I can put the bracing to go from left to right side of the entire workbench. Okay, so let's get to the miter saw and cut off one end. Now that we've got that cut and squared, let's go ahead back to the other table and measure up and lay out the areas where we're going to put the screws and where we're going to cut in the middle or the top for the bracing. Okay, so I put the other leg that I've cut up earlier off camera right next to the one that we just squared up on this end. I'm going to make this nice and flush over here, and basically I'm going to transfer the marks over to the other piece. Now, if you notice, I haven't really cut this section out yet, but on this end over here, I did cut this section out. So what I'll do is I'll cut this out first. I'll cut this across on the table saw, and then try to take this off on the bandsaw, and then we'll come back and clean this up as well and cut it to size. Okay, so that last one was a little bit of a trouble. I guess the screw that I used was a little bent, or I don't know what happened. But anyway, we got it in. I'm not too worried because we're gonna cover these up with either Bondo or wood glue with some sawdust, and then we'll sand everything and then paint everything so you won't even see them anyway. But yeah, so everything's squared up. The only thing I have to do is do one more of these. I'll do it off camera, and then when I'm ready, I'll come back and then we'll cut this section out so that way we can get the bracing from the left side of the table all the way to the right side of the table. So that way you can see we'll get bracing here, and then we'll have bracing over here. Okay, as a matter of fact, let me just show you what it's going to look like. So here we have the left side, right side that I cut out. I just got a piece here. It's not cut to size yet, but basically it'll sit like this from left side to the right side. This is going to be about 48 inches or 4 feet. I made it a little bit lower because I'm also going to put a 3/4 inch plywood on top, and then the overall height is going to be about 32 inches. I'm not very tall, I'm pretty short, so 32 inches is actually a pretty decent height and comfortable for me. So if you decide that you want to make something similar to this for yourself, you could just adjust the height of the legs to fit your needs. Okay, here we are. I apologize, I forgot to hit the record button, but what I ended up doing was I ended up notching out this section over here on all 4 legs, and then that way that's going to be able to receive the wood all the way from back to front, just like so, like this. I'll line it up with this edge right here, and then I'll have another piece of wood that goes from left to right to line up just like so. Sure, I could have just not notched any of this out and I could have just screwed the wood to the front, like just like this. But the reason I didn't do that is, in my mind at least, I wanted to have an overbuilt workbench in the sense of being able to carry heavy loads and capacity. And I wanted the tabletop surface itself to sit on these ledges, so that way it would help transfer any weight or anything like that into the actual corner or the legs all the way down to the ground, rather than relying on screws or anything like that from the front. Now, if the screws or nuts and bolts are going to be sufficient enough from the front, that I don't really know. I'm not like an engineer or anything, but if you do know if it makes a big difference or not, please leave a comment down below and let me know which method would be best, or if both are okay or not. So here we are at the table saw again, and just like I cut out the top section to look like this, I have to do the same thing towards the bottom of the leg, so that way I can do the same thing towards the bottom to receive a bottom shelf. So I'll cut this section out here, and I'll cut this section out here, and leave just a little section just like this down at the bottom. So here we go. Okay, so there we go. So we've got one leg done. Now let's do the other 3, or I'll do the other 3 off screen, and then we'll get back to the build after it's done. Okay, so I have the 4 pieces all cut, the 4 legs. I laid it out on my table over here. This piece right here would be considered the front left. This would be considered the back left. So what I'm going to do now is take these pieces of wood, which I cut down to about 18 inches, because these 2 pieces are about 3 inches thick. The difference of 18 plus 3 and 3 would make a total of 24. So I'm going to take these and basically place it right up to where I cut and left this little section here. And then once I get the holes dug out, I'm just going to put some screws in it to keep it nice and tight. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll flip this around and then do the same thing for the bottom. Okay, so here are the legs with the bracing attached from front to back. Now, as you can see in the layout, all I have to do is attach this long piece from the very far left and right side of the workbench, and I'll attach it on the top over here as well as all the way on the bottom over there, and then I'll do that for the front and the back again, right? So what I'll do is I'll lay this down on its side so that way I can get support and pushing down a little bit while I screw. So let's get to it. Well, there you have it. So basically we attached bottom and top for the front and back. Now we have basically the skeleton of the 2 by 4 foot workbench. So I've gone ahead and marked 24 inches, which is center from left to right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-drill 2 holes for screws on both the top and the bottom of the workbench. And then I'll put the cross bracing in, which I cut down to 18 inches. Okay, so there you have it. We have the bracing for the sides, the front, and the middle over here. So the next step after this is to cover the top and the bottom with some plywood. That's going to be the end of part 1 of this series where we're working on this workbench. The next video will be where we continue to work on the workbench and try to get it finished up. So if you like this video and the content that I'm putting out, please like and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification if you want to be notified when the next video is going to be uploaded. Thanks for watching, everybody.